Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Disabled Voices of Color speaker series. We'll get started very shortly.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next page. All right, everyone, here are some accessibility features that we have. We have captionings, which are going to be provided in the Zoom toolbox. If you press the CC where it says show captions, it would be able to show you the different subtitles. Beyond that, we do offer the stream text, which has the link in the chat to follow with captions on stream text. And we as well have an ASL interpreter today. Next page. Some additional accessibility features include that if you have any Q&A questions throughout like the whole presentation, feel more than free to raise your hand. Use the raise hand button if that is more accessible to you to be able to unmute and ask your questions. We also carry the chat to be able to ask any technical support you might need, or if there's anything that might be misfunctioning or you don't have like the aspects or just would want to know more, that would be provided for you. Next slide. And a quick thing about this Disabled Voices of Color is that this is a monthly installment. We typically invite disability activists to speak towards our youth in our community about how youth can be involved. We have had amazing speakers within the past year that we have had this occur, such as Mia Mingus, Ryan Easterly, Dara Baldwin, Nikki Brown Booker, and Dante Allen. Next. And quick little preview before we begin our questions about our guest speaker, Commissioner Christina Curry, who has an MA and an MPA. Commissioner Christina Curry was appointed Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities in August 2022. A lot of her work originated in advocating for the deaf, hard of hearing communities, nevertheless being the Executive Director for the Harlem Independent Living Center. Christina has been a strong advocate for the disability community on a national level, as well as serving in the National Council of Independent Living and the National Council of Disability. Her passion for the disability community has been seen throughout all of New York as she continually strives for representation. Next. And just a quick thing on some future events is that we have the next youth statewide meetings that are reoccurring on a monthly basis, and the next one would be occurring on July 6th. And these meetings tend to occur the second Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. And link would be sent to everyone through email and listserv, and using like and putting it on the SurveyMonkey, future SurveyMonkeys. Next slide, and we should be good. Yes. And then these are some of our social medias, which include TikTok at Yo Disabled and Proud, Instagram at Yo Disabled and Proud, and for our Do Network, which is at donetwork.org. And that's the end of our PowerPoint, and let's go straight into our questions. All right, once again, thank you everyone for joining and welcome to our Disabled Voices of Color speaker series. Our Disabled Voices of Color speaker series was created to give diverse disabled leaders the capabilities to express themselves and talk about their individual experiences fitting more than one community group. Today, we have Commissioner Christina Curry, who has an MA and an MPA here with us to talk about her background, her experience in the organizing realm, her hopes in creating a more equitable space in the disability community within New York. Nevertheless, what her hopes for the future are when discussing disability justice. So today's first question will begin with a question that is more often than not overlooked. The last couple of years have highlighted for us what we need to do as a community and how important self-check-ins are. With that said, Commissioner Curry, how are you doing and how have you been feeling being a disabled leader living in pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there's the interpreter's there. Okay, so I don't need to use my voice. So, technology is not my friend. And the interpreter froze, and then I couldn't get mute off. Don't laugh at me. That's my flaw. I admit it.
It's all good.
So, how do thank you for that question about how do I feel? No one's asked me that before. So thank you. How does it feel to be, you said disabled leader? Can you clarify that? Do you mean disabled deaf? Disabled deaf blind? Disabled woman of color? Except because I identify in so many different groups.
For sure. And more than anything, I would probably say, how does it feel being an organizer and being part? That's something that I love about these Disabled Voices of Color speaker series, is that we as people fit more than one identity. And it's so important to include our identities within the work that we do, because the disability community includes more than one community, and like our community is so intersectional with one another. So when I discuss as a disabled leader, I don't mean just necessarily disability, but as an organizer who's been involved in the political spectrum and in the organizing realm, and all the work that you have done. How like has it felt like living in pre-COVID and post-COVID, like throughout this whole process?
Thank you. Hmm. I've always been the only one going to meetings higher up. It's always as a person of color.
It's always been me as a person of color in the room. So when I became disabled, it was the same. Nothing really changed. I was still the only person in the room who identified as me. I'm still, the only person who identifies as a woman of color. I'm still the only person who identifies as a disabled person in the room. I'm still the only one who identifies as a person who's deaf, as a person who's deaf with vision loss. Nothing's really changed after all this time for me. So when I walk into the room, I'm proud of myself. I have that New York attitude regardless. You look at me, I look at you, whatever. So that's, I don't really think that it's changed.
Well, to begin with, I have to say that I deeply admire that and I respect that. I believe that that is oftentimes an issue that a lot of folks have. And I know it's been something that I have struggled with being queer, like being a woman of color, like having a disability, just in general feeling fitting more than one community group, and having so many identities that represent who I am as an individual. Very hard to like be able to relate or like identify people that look just like me, because oftentimes it is hard. And I think something that is really awesome is being able to have these opportunities to be able to talk to other people who have gone through similar experiences or just have dealt with similar traumas, to be able to like help like other community members understand what like that entails, and how they could be um better allies, how they could be more supportive, and just how they could be able to expand the way that they do things to be more equitable and inclusive within the work that they do.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
never expect people, I never expect people to involve me or to
I never expect people
follow
to
the
include
law.
me or to expect them to follow the law. It's about with volunteering.
I'm
So
ready to for that.
I'm always prepared.
My attitude
My attitude is
to change for me.
if you're trying, you need to change me. I'm not going to change for you.
I can't
hear,
can't see.
can't see,
I can't walk.
can't walk.
Uh,
So that's fine. I accept that.
It's
But
not
I'm
color.
a woman of color,
It's not going to change.
and that's not going to change.
Mm, mm, mm.
So I accept that as me.
And
And I
that's my attitude. But I,
that's what I have.
yeah,
But I have to
get
be
too
authentic,
concerned with that.
and you have to develop.
Absolutely.
I needed to.
Yeah, it didn't start out that way.
It didn't start out that way.
I was really,
I was really shy.
and then later decided
No, I just decided, you know what?
that,
This is
no,
here. No,
like, no, I'm not going to affect their
I'm not
attitude
gonna
with me.
their attitudes regarding me.
Okay. I decide
I
my
decide.
life,
My life,
not the other way.
not the other way around.
That is something that I deeply admire. Like, I genuinely do, because I've been in areas where I have found it harder to like be able to express myself um without like feeling to an extent inferior like in many areas just because of who I am and how oftentimes I've been targeted for either the color of my skin, for like my accent, for my disability, etc. um, so it's I know like for a lot of youth that are slowly transitioning from like youth into adulthood, they're trying to find themselves and like be able to find their pride and like really take everything firmly and just like lead everything heads on. So do know that I deeply admire all that you do and like your authenticity just because it's something that we need and it's so refreshing and it's so admirable just because it does give a lot of hope in just being able to feel that pride that we carry in and just be like accept us for who we are as people.
Yes, yes, yes.
uh,
You got it.
with that, I also would want some folks to know a little bit about you. So, would you be able to tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you enjoy most within your work that you do? And what are some of the challenges that you face within your work environment?
So I'm going to voice for myself. I'm going to voice for myself. One, because I see that I don't think the interpreter can see my hands clearly. I see him struggling. And you see, the fact that I can tell what my interpreter is going through, like how he's squinting, getting up close to the camera, that's important as a deaf person when you depend on another person to assist you with effective communication. You need to have trust and a bond. So what do I like about my job? Okay, let's start back. I was an advocate first, and I'm an advocate still, and I will be an advocate after I leave this job. So if I see something that's not right, if I see something that's not accessible, if I see something that's a barrier for a person who's disabled, my fun begins when I go up to the proprietor, to the owner, and I ask them if they know about ADA and do they know that they're not accessible. And my fun is really when they say no. And I say, oh, you don't want to become accessible? No. Okay, thank you. The federal law, ADA, which is a civil rights law, has been around for 30 years, been around for a minute. Therefore, I don't feel the need to discuss anymore. I just automatically say, let me introduce you to the lawyer. Let you two figure it out on how you're going to lose this case, and you will become accessible. Believe it or not, that is my fun. I get joy out of that because when you make something accessible for us, you make it accessible for older adults, you make it accessible for parents with strollers and toddlers, you make it accessible for people lugging suitcases. It's a win-win situation. I like that, but I didn't always. Remember I said before I was shy. I wasn't born disabled, I became disabled. I wasn't born deaf, I became deaf. I wasn't born with a vision loss, that happened. I became legally blind. So I had to find my voice because you're right. The first, just as you feel sometimes when we go, low self-esteem, when I first lost my hearing, I didn't want to socialize with people, especially my family, who knew me as a hearing person. And now I can't hear. And I'm saying, what? What? Again, again, again? That wasn't fun. When I lost my sight, walking into walls was not cute. I had to decide what to do to help myself. Okay, there's a person who's deaf on there. Okay. So I had to, I'll go back. Do you want me to start back? For the person who requested interpreter. Do you want me to go back so that I can be interpreter? Okay. Just the individual said, yes, please. So my fun, what do I find fun? Is literally when I encounter something that's not accessible and I get to speak to the owner or the proprietor and ask, are they aware of ADA? And that ADA is a civil rights law. It's a federal law. And when that owner or proprietor says, nah, we're not interested in making it accessible. At this point in time in 2023, I do not feel the need to go back and forth. The law has been around for almost 30 years. Therefore, very little discussion. I will introduce you to the lawyer who's going to explain why you're about to lose this case. And I go on about my way because my feeling is when you make an establishment accessible for us, the disabled community, you make it accessible for older adults, you make it accessible for parents with toddlers and strollers, you make it accessible for people dragging suitcases, you make it accessible for all. It is a win-win situation. And yes, I find it fun now. I didn't always. I wasn't born physically disabled. I wasn't born with a hearing loss. I wasn't born with a vision loss. That happened as an adult. And when I first would enter meetings and conferences with people, I would feel what we call low self-esteem. I was not comfortable. I wasn't sure how people would react to me. And it was one day when I decided, and Jessica, I'm addressing you directly. It was one day when I decided, no, this is what I've been going through as a woman of color. I'm not about to continue at this point in my life to continue allowing people to decide for me how my life will be. I'm not going to do it. I was very shy. I stutter. I also have a lisp, I'll say condition, or I lisp. Let's say that. Can't hear, I lisp, I stutter, can't see, barely walk. There's nothing else left. I am who I am. And that's when, as a New Yorker also, because a lot of us have attitude. So that in combination with nobody gets to look down on me. I have an MA, I have an MPA, and I wanted that acknowledged because I worked hard for that. I worked hard. When I got my MA, I was the only person there who was losing their hearing. When I got my MPA, which is in emergency management, I'm the only person who has a multiple disability and has a degree, an MPA in emergency management for the state of New York, to my knowledge. Hopefully that's changed since then. So with my attitude, it's the, I am here. I deserve a spot. If you are not comfortable being around me because I'm a woman of color, because I can't hear, can't see, barely walk, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not going to apologize for being me. Matter of fact, I need more space at the table. you need less. You adjust for me. Now, as the commissioner, I have to be nice. I move differently, I speak differently, but at my heart, I'm still an advocate. If something needs to be changed, then we're going to change it. And I don't understand the word no. So, very, very long response to your question.
I feel that it was just enough. Like, and I also am very grateful for that personal message because I know also working a lot with young people and also being young myself, I know that oftentimes, especially for a lot of the youth that I work with who fit more than one identity, this is oftentimes something that we have issues with and that we question ourselves, like our leadership and our roles in like in different parts that we play. So I genuinely do thank you for that and like for really uplifting me because it really gives me kind of like that motivation of like being able to remind people that like I am who I am and I'm not going to change who I am for someone. So thank
Right. Just one last piece on that. It's how do I put this? It's you are not just your disability. That isn't the only piece of you. So when people say, I don't know how to identify, who am I? You are who you are. I am Christina Curry. I'm not just the commissioner. I'm not just a woman. I'm not just a woman of color. I'm not just a deaf person, a person with a vision loss, a person with physical disabilities. I'm not just that. I'm not just a single mom. I am not just a person who can speak multiple languages and sign. That's all of me. The same thing. You are not just your disability. Never let anyone who's listening or right now, never let anyone reduce you down to your disability because you're so much more than that. You are you. I tell people, see me, not my disability. See me, look at me, hear me. And I won't say anymore. I'll stop talking.
No, it's all good. I feel like you could be preaching for like hours and I'll just be like, ooh, I am feeling it in my soul that is going into me. So thank you. Um,
Good.
Going into our next question, seeing that we discussed a little bit about just like some of the work that you do and some of the challenges that you have faced. Um, were there any specific role models that you had when you were younger into helping you become this amazing powerhouse that you are?
Thank you. Yes. Two people come to mind real fast. My mother, who is now legally blind as a result of violence. She is a domestic violence survivor, not victim. And my brother, who is a dynamic powerhouse, fully dyslexic, can't read. All his life, people made fun of him and his inability to read. But yet, my brother was part of the surgical team in Atlanta that put in the first bionic eye. My brother is my absolute hero because, in spite of everyone making fun of him, in spite of his inability to read, my brother was extremely successful in the medical field. You know, the one matter of fact, after the surgeon made a mistake on my eye, and my brother said he could put together a surgical team that would look at it and see what needed to be done. And I laughed and said, yeah, I don't want you as the surgeon. We fought too much as kids. You know, that threat of making my eye a marble, nah, I'm good. But the fact that my brother could still do this with limited opportunities from when we were kids to where he is now, He's a disabled veteran, but he served his country. He worked in the medical field. My brother is my hero. My mom is my other hero because, in spite of her inability to see because of violence, my mom didn't let that stop her from doing anything and everything. She's a cancer survivor. And those two, there are so many more, but the two that I hold dear are my mom and my brother. I have my uncles who said, in spite of everything, learn another language, learn cultures, which is why I go to different countries to speak on disability. My family, let's just let it grow to say my family and my friends and the community I serve. Those are my role
Well,
models.
you had amazing role models, and they are all hella impressive. Like, I can understand, especially the mom aspect to things, just because my mom is also a cancer survivor and someone that has had to face a lot of adversity, with
Mhm.
loss, just sickness, being a single parent, like, and so on, and like still thriving and still always encouraging me to like be the person that I am and to not lose myself in the focus, that no matter like the traumas or any issues that I face, I am still me and I should be proud of who I am and the work that I do. So, yeah, thank you. Like, I feel that like moms need so much credit into like helping
Mhm.
us become the people that we are today, because many of our moms have done so much to provide us with the best possible lives that we can have. And
Mhm.
it's important to recognize like the work that they have done because they are hella awesome. All right.
Exactly. Thank you. So what else you got for me?
Question number 4. I when looking over a lot of the work that you have done, it was like, whew, an impressive resume. So one of the questions that I had was having how has being a counselor in the mental health field and serving for the New York HIV Advisory Board intersected with the work that you have done as Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities?
So those are separate things. So let's start with the HIV advisory council I was on. Um, that oh, I don't have the words for that because it was the first time that anyone had talked about the deaf community not getting parity, the same information that the hearing community was hearing about HIV. It was the first time that we really discussed in depth about that. And what happened from my being on the board was that the HILC, Harlem Independent Living Center, the agency received money that we could produce videos to explain in ASL, sign language only, HIV, what it was, how do you get it, how do you prevent it, why you need to go to the doctor. And it was in sign language, and it was had audio description for people with vision loss, and it was captioned. It was accessible. So that was phenomenal. Being a mental health counselor, working with the Black and Brown communities, my people. So if I encountered someone who only spoke Spanish, well, I'm going to switch and I'm speaking Spanish. If it was someone who spoke, you we do what's called code switching. So when you're home or with your friends, you speak one way. When you're outside professional, you speak another way. And if it was someone who spoke more of the neighborhood, using the vocabulary of the neighborhood, well, then I needed to change to match. But you're not taught to do that when you go in to be a counselor. You're taught to be separate and to ask questions. So, how are you? How are you doing? but you don't respond to the person who really wants to feel a bond. They want to trust you. They want to believe you know what you're doing. So I had to adapt to that. I had a kid who was an arsonist, and I sat outside. Like, when we meet, we sit outside. We're not going inside because I don't trust you. I'm not trying to be on fire today. That's not fun. And speaking in a language to him that made sense, as opposed to, what are you feeling? Do you think you're going to use a match and throw it at me? No, we're not talking that way. So it was things like that, just being part of the community. And for every advisory council I've been on, it's always representing the community, especially those who are deaf with a vision loss and people of color. That's always been what I focused on. Now, as a commissioner, I cover all of New York City, and we focus on all disabilities. But as I said earlier, I'm still an advocate. I still look at what we're doing for the deaf-blind community, and I'm still looking at what are we doing for those of the Black and Brown communities.
All right. Going into the next question, which is very well connected to this question, is how has serving in a variety of roles, well, you have served in a variety of roles throughout your career. What has each individual role that separates from one another taught you? And what do you know now that you wish you had learned in the earlier stages of your career?
What do I wish I'd known way back in the beginning? Don't be afraid.
Mm.
Pencils have erasers. It's okay to make a mistake. As long as what I was doing did not negatively impact the life of the consumer or client that I was working with, meaning as a result of working with me, they did not become homeless, they were not suicidal, they were not homicidal, everything else could be fixed. And that was important to remember, because usually as a counselor, as an advocate, you're seeing people in crisis at the worst time of their lives, when they're not able to think logically. They need someone to assist them with that. So it was just remembering that I was there to assist and to listen and to explain. And if you notice, I use the word assist. Assist means I'm not helping you. I'm showing you how to do it for yourself. The best advocate is a self-advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Help fosters dependency. I don't want people doing things for me. So I'm going to presume that you want to learn how to do it for yourself as well. Help means, as a social worker, if I get fired, quit, or just stop coming to work, now you as the person coming in for services, you have to wait for the next person to come in and bring them up to speed. And how many months are you behind in whatever your issue you were facing? But if you are assisted, shown what to do, you don't have to depend on us. You can do it yourself. And that's what I believe as a disability group, we need to learn more of that. Be self-reliant, be independent. I see too many youth who, through no fault of their own, because parents in school have taught them that they can't do anything, so they don't do anything. They don't try. And when they do and they fail, and failure is okay, they stop or they get mad. So what I wish I had known back when I started was not to be afraid. And it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to make mistakes, and find a mentor. Find someone who actually knows what they're talking about and has time to meet with. If I had had that, someone to meet with me at least once a month just to check in. That's what I wish I had known. What was
There's
the
a
other part?
Oh, that's perfectly fine. You already answered it. I have to say that I felt it all. I genuinely do hear you when you say assist. Um, Having been born with a disability, oftentimes living in a household where like you're the only person that's disabled, it's so hard to separate and becoming independent. And it's not per se throwing
Mhm,
negative attributions towards like how parents want you to grow, but they want to do a lot for you, like being able
mhm,
to show you like the way and so on, instead of like assisting you into like being your own independent leader and like being able to do things independently. I know my transitioning from like high school into university was very hard in that sense, because a lot I didn't have those resources or those attributions of like knowing who to go for with what, or like who to get assistance for whatever I needed to get assistance on. And
right.
it was a really hard time, like, especially because I moved very far from where I lived just because I wanted to experience the living independently and
Mhm,
be able to gain a lot of those skills. But I also would have wished to like have learned that, like in the sense of being having been assisted at a younger age, because I feel that that could have been such an easier transition between high school to college, and to being able to learn of those a lot of those skills to be able to be stronger once like having arrived in college. So I do like am grateful for that, as well as for the
mhm,
aspect of having mentors. I have learned, especially right now, the importance of that, and like really going towards folks um who have experienced things and like be able to gain some knowledge from them, and just be, especially people that you can relate to, that you have experienced similar stories, or just like as the whole things like that connection that can be built there. And it's been really great being able to have that, and just being able to have someone that can really understand not only my struggles in school or work or so on, but also my struggles in life and just being who I am. So
mhm.
yes, definitely, appreciate everything that you mentioned, because especially I think right now in time is where I have learned a lot of those things.
Good. As you learn it, you teach it to someone else and you bring them up. And it's remember, as we move up the ladder of working or ladder of life, eventually we're going to come back down as we reach that other side. As you go up, pull someone up with you. So they pull someone up. So they pull someone up. And we also have to teach our youth, you have to be willing to listen. You have to be able to understand you don't know everything. It's going to be scary. Mom and dad and teachers did everything for you, but if you want to be independent, truly independent, then you're going to have to try. And you're going to have to try on your own. And don't go to work expecting everyone to do it for you. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Before I go to my next question, we did have a question from you from like our YouTube live page, and it said, what is one simple change organizations can do in order to be more inclusive?
I only get to say one. Can I say a few?
You could go for a few. They just mentioned one, but I'll say go for a few.
Okay. Okay, change. Stop pitying us. We're not
Mm,
looking for pity, not looking for special treatment, not looking for preferential treatment. We want the same opportunity as a non disabled person. We want the same disability opportunity as someone who can see, as someone who can hear. What do we want? We want you to be cognizant that we exist, not just the disability, but the person. And what a thing of change, and I'm sorry, I'm starting to stutter now because I'm getting real excited. Stop going up to other people and saying, can you tell her? Can you ask him? I didn't leave the room. Talk to me. Talk to me. See me. How would treat people the way you would want to be treated, but some people just don't know how they want to be treated. So I'll tell them, talk to me, see me. That's one thing of change. If I'm coming into your office and you start screaming at me because I can't see, so you think that'll help me hear, no. If I can't hear, stop doing the with your hands, because I don't do that either. I sign. If I come in and I'm using assistive devices, don't pull the chair away thinking that's going to help me. Leave it alone so I can get in by myself. What's an agent of change? Don't presume that we can't do it until we ask you for assistance. Don't minimize our existence. That's the best one. Don't minimize who we are. Once you see us, once you acknowledge us, get to know us, then you'll see we can do the same things that they can, mostly, but differently. And that's okay.
I felt chills. As you mentioned, you felt like that passion. I felt chills in everything that you were saying, just because
Thank you.
I seen it, I lived it, and it's something that frustrates me. Also, within the educational system, having been someone that had to go a lot towards the disability centers within the college system,
Mm-hmm.
I oftentimes didn't get the proper support that I needed. And then when I had to be taken to a hospital for like my normal visits and so on, and then returning, whew, one of my biggest struggles was that I had to settle for a D and an F, because I couldn't take certain assignments on time. And I had actual doctor's notifications and signatures proving that. And I had taken it all the way to the dean of students, and they said that the professor was within the jurisdiction to like be able to provide me with that, and that they didn't have purview, and it was just like a mess, and it was something that really hit me hard, and, like, being able to work harder, like, work smarter, and, like, really delve from learning that experience into not letting, like, my disability or my personal things get, and be able to find my way around things, and I went from that into a straight A student and be able to manage things around my individual schedule to be able to prosper in school, knowing that the educational system was not behind me and supporting me in the ways that I needed them to support me. So,
I understand that. While I was working on my MPA, trying to get effective communication was interesting. But I was lucky in this one. My peers, the ones who attended class with me, all understood she can't hear. She needs effective communication. She needs an interpreter. No one looked at the interpreter and said, tell her, unless they just wanted to see me get mad. And then that was because it was a joke, because they knew how I would respond. But the only way we can make change is when we speak up. You don't have to be belligerent. You don't have to be adversarial. We can be confrontational in such a nice way that everyone apologizes to us. And you can still be effective. So what you do has a ripple effect for the students who come after you. What I did was based on standing on the shoulders who came before me.
Mm.
So again, it's each one teach one. As you move up, bring someone up with you. As you go through the college system, assist someone else to navigate. When you graduate, tell them what happens, what to expect. When you enter the workforce, tell whomever, someone, everyone. And also just by existing, just by being you, just by persevering, everyone who's on this call who struggles against family saying, I can do this for you, or why are you going to do that? I indeed, be quiet, be careful. No, the fact that you are struggling against them, you're also showing your family, I can do this. I'm independent. I might do it differently than you, but I can still do this. It doesn't happen right away sometimes, but just one day it clicks. It'll click. And you'll just say, I got this. I run this. That's one of my favorite sayings, other than when I rule the world, because I want everyone to understand being disabled, there's nothing wrong with it. But I run this. I run my life. No one else gets to do that. You can participate, but you don't get to dictate.
Oof. I feel very refreshed in this conversation, and like
Thank
there's
you.
so much more that I definitely could be able to ask. Um, I have two more questions, just also for the interest of time. Um, One question would be, multiple members within the disability organizing realm fit into more than one identity. As someone who fits more than one identity, how have you been confronted with issues within any of your workplaces? And if so, how did you manage those conversations? I think that's the most important question for many of us, in how to be able to maneuver those conversations.
So the very last time anyone was able to dictate my life or aspect of work, I was an intern at Lexington Center for the Deaf.
Mm.
I was still hearing, fully hearing, and learning how to sign. And someone was upset because I was not signing in the hallway. I was speaking to another hearing person, and they filed a complaint. And my supervisor met with them. Everybody met with them but me, because my supervisor thought that was better. I decided after that meeting, I would never allow that again.
Mm.
Because at that point, I was hearing and I didn't know everything. Talk to me.
Mm.
Talk to me. After that, I've had more than a few. Back up. In the workforce, there's called subtle racism. It's not overt. And I've learned, what's that phrase? Your generation uses clap back. I think that's it. Yeah, I know I said it wrong. But when I realized that was happening, oh no, boo, we're not doing that. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from the South Bronx, and if you've heard about the South Bronx, it's true. And I worked in Harlem. And before that, I was from the South Bronx. And before that, I'm still from the South Bronx. So if you have a problem with me that's subtle, oh, you speak so well, as opposed to what? Wow, your writing is so great. Versus, and then I would just, after a while, if someone tries to make a comment about whether I can hear or what I can see, I'm good for this, just sitting and staring. Silence is a wonderful thing. Just sit and stare. Usually that person becomes very uncomfortable because they know what they were doing. So at this stage in my life, but remember, you're young, all of you are starting new. I'm at the older part of, yeah, you don't get to do that. If anything, I make others feel uncomfortable. I love the color of my skin. I love it. And during the summer, I try to pour as much stuff on me. So by the time I come back, I'm a deep, dark chocolate. And I dare anyone to come up to me and say anything. I love my color. I'm okay with the fact that I can't hear. And because of that, no one gets to make me feel silly. I don't sign all the time. I do what's called lazy sign until I'm upset. When I'm upset, I know how to sign in American Sign Language. I know how to do it very well. So I'll let you know in sign language what we're not going to do. I speak Spanish. I'll tell you. What we're not going to do is make me feel less than. I can't see. I know that. I can't walk well. I know that. So if someone says to me, oh, I didn't know you were blind. Well, I knew it. What are we apologizing for? I'm good. What's your problem? Get it?
Yeah.
I just won't let anyone try to make me feel bad. At the end of the day, unless you're signing my check or paying my rent, I don't care. I seriously don't care. Now, if you're paying my rent, that's different. I'm going to listen to what you say. Maybe.
And the last quick question, just for the interest of time, I would say in 1 minute, like the 30, what would it be? When you elevator speech would be, what would be your message for youth and what you hope youth could be able to take from this conversation?
Elevator. Love yourself. Be comfortable in your skin. Accept who you are. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Get up. If you fall, get up again. Pick yourself up. Have someone help you. You can do it. Find your passion. And just because you're disabled doesn't mean you have to work with the disabled community. Find what you like and pursue it. I'm off the elevator.
All right. Everyone, I do know that I did mention it was going to be an hour. So for whoever's still here, we want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Christina, Emilio, our captioner, our ASL interpreters that were early here with us today. Overall, everyone for taking the time to support us, to help us, and just to be present. And I genuinely hope you take away from this conversation, especially our youth, because I feel there's so much that we can be able to take away from this and be able to bring back our inner pride and just being comfortable in our skins, which oftentimes can be extremely hard, especially right now with everything that is happening on a national level. So thank you, Christina. Do know that I'm very much going to be very well connected to you just because I am not kidding when I'm saying that. I felt you were preaching and it really reached my soul. So thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, once again.
Thank you so very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
For sure. And
Bye-bye.